So now we'll go ahead and plot our data from the pH lab after we calibrated our pH meter. So I'm selecting the data, I'm inserting. Over here we have the scatter plot. And a couple of things. First of all, never use the title, when you're in this class, never use the title bar there. That's what the figure title is for, underneath it. And then what we're going to see is when we click on this, we can do right click, format data series. Or when we go up here, we can go to trend line. Either way. So if I unclick that, I could also just right click, format data series. Well, better yet, right click, add trend line. Either way. And so what we're going to do, it says automatic and linear, and that's what we want. We want a linear. And then we're going to display the equation down there and the r-squared value. And the r-squared value is how close the data fit. So r squared of 1, that means that's perfect. Okay. And so first of all, when we're going to look at this, I would like to change this pH scale from 0 to 14. And so I'm going to go ahead and right click on that, format axis, and then I go over here to the bounds maximum. I'm going to change to 14. So now it goes to pH 14. I'm also going to go ahead and extrapolate this line forward and backwards. And so when we go back to the line, I can just click on it. And now you see the forecast down here. See how it changed the menu? If I click on this, then I see a menu over here to format the axis. If I click on this, I can format the line. So I'm going to forecast this forward, and if you look at it, this is 4, so it's using these units. So I want it to go to 0, so I'm going to have it forecast back 4. And see, it went to pH 0. Now I'm going to have it forecast forward by 4. So now we have the full pH scale. However, if you look at where the pH is, it's like right in the middle, and the line is going through that 8. So that's not good data presentation. So I'm going to click on that, and then where it says alignment, I'm going to go for, oh, that didn't work. What I can do is click on the axis and then go under labels where it says label position. Instead of next to the axis, we're going to have it go all the way down to the bottom, so low. Okay, good. So now it's on the bottom. If you look at it, this is the proper number of significant figures for the pH meter, but how about this, right? So that we know it went out to the first decimal place. But that's okay, because we can leave it like that because we don't need that fine level. Okay, so now we've got a line, we've got our data, and so we need our axes labeled. And so I'm going to click on this, it gives me the plus, axis titles, and then I'm going to go ahead and change that to millivolts. I'm going to go down here and change this to pH. And now when I'm looking at this, the default color in my Excel for whatever reason is it's kind of like a dark gray instead of a black. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to make it darker, and I'm going to make them bigger. So I'm going to increase the font a little bit, right, make sure that we can see it, and then same with the millivolts and the pH. I guess we need to do them at one at the same time. I'm going to increase it to something that looks, okay, that looks reasonable, and that's 16. I'm going to make it black. And so I want to be consistent, so I'm going to make this 16, and then I'm going to make that black. And then I'm going to check on the x-axis. I'm going to increase that just so that it looks good. Turn it black so that it's nice and tight. So there we go. So what we have then is we've got our axes labeled. We have very clear numbers here, and we had the lines that it gave us by default are fine because we can take anywhere on this and we can kind of see approximately where it is. So I think that the grid lines, both for the y-axis and the x-axis, work really well. However, when we look at this, where can you put this? Well, you could put this down here. Okay, that's a fine place for it. If you wanted it to be up here, then we would need to make sure that we see what I did there. If you didn't see that up here, I selected this fill color white. And so see how now it essentially does not have the grids behind it. So please don't make one where the grids are behind it, right? So for example, like this. because now we're seeing things right through. So either make this white, fill it in white, right? Or, I mean, you could play around with it a little bit. You know, you could make it black and then make the font white. I don't know if that's as easy to read though, so I'm going to undo that. But, you know, the general idea part of this class is find something that you think works, and of course I will be the kind of final arbiter. And then I'm going to click on this and I'm going to make this nice and black here, make it much darker. And so what this is showing us then is, so this is a nice figure, although I do like mine up here for some reason. It's just my preference is to have it up there. So I will leave it up there. So what this is showing us is that the slope of minus 54.23 pH units, right? Excuse me, millivolts, because the slope is minus 54 millivolts per pH unit. That's what this is saying right here. And so we can compare that to what we have in the book, right? So what do we have here? At 25 degrees, we've got minus 59, and this is minus 54. So that works well. And what we see is that, and that's close enough, each pH meter will be a little bit different. But again, we don't want that slope. If next semester, when the person uses this particular pH meter, if this is now down to minus 50, then what we're seeing is that the slope is getting lower and lower and lower and lower. And that's what we don't want to happen, right? So right now, it's nice and steep. If it starts getting smaller and smaller, then we know that it's aging. And so, okay, so this looks like a good figure to me. If you want to keep it this color, you can. Otherwise, you know, you can go in here and you can change under Format Trendline. You can change some of the colors, like color right here, if you want to make it, you know, something like that. That doesn't look as good to me. If we wanted to keep it black and we wanted to just change the dash type to something like that, right? Maybe we want to go ahead and click on the marker, or we could just leave it like that so we can see what's going on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to go ahead and make a figure out of it. And again, I like to paste it as a picture because then I can just do this and nothing changes. Right, so let's make this a nice figure right there. If I wanted to center it on the page, I could do something like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and maybe give enough lines, or I could have done that, and then it automatically gives me something down there. So I could say figure 1. So what would be a good title for this? Well, one particular title could be something like response of pH meter after calibration. Or it could be calibration buffer check for electrode response. Okay, so something like that. Or it could be slope determination for pH meter after calibration. Right, so there's something that is telling us that it's pH, pH meter, things like that. And then we need a legend, right? Something like buffers pH 4.00, 7.00, 10.00, we use to calibrate and check the pH meter. Now something else we should have in here, and we could write it like that, or we could put something like pH meter is calibrated with pH 4.00, 7.00, and 10.00 standards at and then maybe it was 24.8. I don't know what temperature it was on that particular day in lab, but you have it in your notebook, right? Degrees Celsius. So that tells us now too, okay, it was calibrated, and this is slope determination for pH meter after calibration. Now, typically what we then want to do is we want to make sure that these are bold, so that's clear. So that right there is legit, right there. So, you know, I don't want to have submissions that look exactly like this. I just gave you a few examples of some things that are appropriate to put in there are these pHs are, you know, 24.8, because as we talked about, the equilibrium constant does change. And so this is a hard copy of this is what you will bring into class and submit, and I'll collect them and I'll grade them. And now I'm going to be pretty, you know, I'm going to be more tough on this. If you're sloppy, if you don't have this, if you're coming in late and you're writing it on a piece of paper, you're not going to earn all the points. I want this to look really, really good. It doesn't need to look exactly like this, but when it's printed off, it should be clear where the data points are, what the trend line is. It should have the proper 0 to 14. And it should have the equation of the line.